Welcome back, everyone. Hoping you're out there had a Merry Christmas. We have a lot to talk about this morning. First, we're going to highlight this powerful storm system over the middle part of the country into that end of the year time frame and take you all the way through that first week of January. So let's take a look at this upper level low system because it's a very slow moving, but it's pretty dynamic and it's got some colder air pushing south into Texas this morning. It's a dry air, but it's definitely some colder air. But out ahead of it, you're still within the warm sector as this is going to be slowly drifting east southeastward over the next couple of days. But out ahead of it, you can see it better on the water vapor imagery. You have this little counterclockwise swirl, and further south, there's the dry slot underneath it in this kind of tan shaded zone. That's a dry air mass, but there's the warm sector still out ahead of it. So you're getting some heavier rains that have strafed across a good part of the Carolinas into Virginia, swinging up through West Virginia. And then once you swing over into Canada, you got running into kind of a sector where you are going to have a transition to ice, and then it's all snow on the colder side back behind that cold front. And they do have a slew of winter weather advisories and blizzard warnings still in effect for that colder side of the storm. So as it wraps around, it feeds from the warm sector. You have that transition zone. That's why we do have ice storm warnings up here into the Dakotas, but then heavier snows continuing to fly across South Dakota into Nebraska, as well as into portions of Kansas here. Some of these wind gusts, in fact, even Denver International picked up 64-mile-per-hour wind gusts with this dynamic system, and this will be slowly drifting east southeastward over the next 2 days. So if you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns, hit the subscribe button. You're in. You get all my daily content on this channel. So let's highlight this setup. There's a surface map. So you got this low pressure center that's highlighted across the middle part of the country. You've got the warm sector out ahead of it. So you're still getting some showers and thunderstorms into the Carolinas this afternoon, through portions of eastern Kentucky, into portions of Ohio. Then once it swings across into the Great Lakes, you're going to have a transition zone still within that warm to cold sector. All that's going to change over to freezing ice and freezing rain, and they already had some ice accretions up here over 1/10 of an inch, so it gets dangerous. That's why they've got those ice storm warnings in place. Then once you get on the backside, that's when the heavier snows are still going to fall. Some of these amounts have already picked up about 1 foot of snow over the last 2 days with this Christmas time blizzard we've been talking about for many days on this channel. And it's still cranking, but the low will be finally on the move. And as it shifts on the move, it'll slowly start drifting into portions of Missouri, and it's going to take its sweet time. It takes all day today into the day tomorrow to be fully encompassed over Missouri. So places like into Kansas City could pick up a couple of inches of snow down here into Topeka. You know, moving across into St. Louis is not out of the question. You can pick up at least some snow with this system, and it will continue to drift southeastward, dragging down kind of a reinforcing shot of colder air. This is not like Arctic air for obviously end of December standards, but it's definitely colder than what we've been as of late, because it's, you know, obviously December has been plenty warm. So this is a welcome relief for those wanting to feel like a lot like what December should feel like. And its complements of this low pressure center will bring the colder air and will bring some snow along with it. And notice the temperatures as we get into that Thursday morning, all the way dropping into the Fayetteville region, into Arkansas. Even some freezing temperatures down here into Mississippi. Now that's going to be crucial because, yeah, that upper level low is going to continue to dive southeastward. So I always look at the atmosphere from the top down. So I'm showing you temperatures on Thursday morning at the 850 millibar. This is about 5,000 feet up in the atmosphere. These temperatures are in Celsius, but the translation to this anywhere from -2 to -7 degrees Celsius is anywhere from like 19 to 28 degrees. Now that's crucial because you're going to have a little bit of a precipitation falling. So with the combination of some evaporative cooling, you could technically cool those temperatures another 5 degrees. That may be enough to at least pull some snowflakes dropping into places like Arkansas, into Tennessee. I probably can't even roll out northern portions of Mississippi, maybe even northern portions of Alabama, with some at least potential snow flurries from this system, as that upper level low will be drifting southeastward. If we take a look at the latest update on the NAM 3K, this is your higher resolution guidance. It only actually goes out 60 hours, so it stops around Thursday night. But nonetheless, it shows the continued snow on the backside of that system. Then as it continues to dive southeastward, that's where the heavier snows are going to be starting to unfold across Missouri. So not like, crazy amounts, but hey, some places like into Kansas City could pick up an inch or two, if not maybe 3 inches from this system. And I can't even roll out some snow in Fayetteville, Arkansas. But yes, nonetheless, we could be picking up at least some flurry down here into Kentucky, maybe drifting into Tennessee. If we look at the GFS ensembles, it's actually hinting at this a little bit better. So you definitely can't roll out, because this actually is able to go out to that Friday morning time frame. So it's likely some of these areas, if you live in the Fayetteville, maybe the Mountain Home region, down here into portions of western Tennessee, far northern portions of Mississippi and Alabama, can't roll out some snowflakes flying into western Kentucky. I mean, if you see snow flying, don't say I didn't tell you it's going to happen, right? So, but after that, it tends to kind of dry out on the backside. So this low pressure center will be drifting off into the east, but there's not really going to be much precipitation left from this system. We're going to have a kind of a quick, short 2-day warm up after this system moves out. You can actually see it better on that 500 millibar setup. So you got the system that's going to be moving out to the east, but we've got some weakness up in the upper levels. This is a cool pocket of air that will form over Minnesota. This energy will be diving south, as well as this energy will pulling in from the west to the east. That will merge in the middle of the country and drop likely the coldest temperatures you've actually seen so far this season. So now we're getting into that first day or two of January. So in the middle of the country, I'm looking for a warmer type New Year's Eve. But once you get to New Year's Day, we've got a pretty strong cold front that'll be dropping southbound. So those areas into Oklahoma, into Texas, into Arkansas, into Louisiana, you're likely going to experience your coldest temperature so far you've seen this winter with this cold shot. And notice the ridge, right? So that's a pretty good transition zone. The ridge will be slowly trying to erode and retrograde back up into Canada. And as we get deeper into that first week of January, it's really going to start to retreat further north and eventually up over Alaska. So let's highlight that first significant cold blast that likely is going to come in around after that on New Year's Day timeframe. So once you wake up on the 2nd, yeah, you're talking low 20s in Oklahoma. You could be in the mid 20 range in Dallas. That's definitely the coldest temperatures you've seen. Look at the 20s dropping all the way down into Shreveport, into Mississippi, as that colder air pushes all the way into the northeast as well, with a bona fide cold front, as we get into that first couple of days of January. And it's going to be pretty significant because, like I mentioned, the ridge is going to continue to drift further and further north. And underneath, you've got that subtropical jet that starts to become active. And that makes things a little bit more interesting, especially for those areas kind of further south, if you're looking for, any possibilities of winter weather probabilities. So let's break this thing down for you. As that cold blast comes in after the new year, there are at least some members showing opportunities into a good part of portions of the mid-Atlantic into the Northeast. I'm not looking for anything significant, but at least they're going to have opportunities for some snow within this region during that time frame. And as that cold air continues to drift, it actually puts portions of the middle of the country have at least some probabilities. It's not zero, it's not great, but it's definitely not zero, as the storm system, as a disturbance, will be moving in from west to east and falling into that colder air. It's likely going to be a chilly rain across this region, but at least right now, it's not out of the question that you could pick up some mixed precipitation down here within that January 3rd timeframe into possibly the Texas Panhandle, into Oklahoma, and I can't even roll out portions of Texas, maybe looking for some sort of wintry opportunities. Again, it's not a great potential. It's probably less than 40% right now, but at least it's not zero if you're looking for some sort of, wintry, at least opportunities for to see in some, wintry action, further south. But the trend is there going in, to that first week of January, after coming off a very warm December. Finally, we start seeing some of those teleconnections start to match up. Now we're looking for the NAO, which is your North American oscillation, continue to be on that neutral to negative side all the way through that first 10 days of January. Then it's also aligning with the EPO, which is your Eastern Pacific oscillation. There's the trend at, once you get past Christmas, where we are now, look at that decisive turn dropping southbound, matches up with the NAO. So that's always a good combination if you want colder weather into the central and eastern 2/3 of the US. And it's likely we're going to get that into that first 10 days of January. And the deeper we get into the 4th, look at the ridge now, right? This is January 4th. As the NAO goes negative, as the EPO goes further negative, the ridge will be shifting, retrograding further and further up into Canada. That allows the colder air to sink underneath. And by the time we get into that 5th and 6th time frame, it's way up there, right? It's basically locked over Greenland. It's locked over Alaska. You've got all the cross-polar flow type air underneath. This would be an ample setup as a more active subtropical jet stream starts to take over. You're going to have at least some wintry weather opportunities as we get closer into that time frame. And the CFS longer range guidance is already kind of hinting at that as that more active storm track. We've seen this particular storm track over and over again so far in December, but it just hadn't been cold enough to rain. I mean, to snow, right? It's been all rain. But this time, it's probably going to be cold enough to actually transfer some of that from rain to snow as that colder, like look at the 540 line dropping all the way down to the Gulf Coast. So it's definitely going to have some colder air, especially with those two teleconnections trending negative, and that would put a low pressure center exactly where some of these have been. It's just, again, you're likely going to have more colder air going to be associated with it during that time frame. If we look at the kind of the latest EPS guidance, right? You're looking at the ensemble guidance. I picked out a city, say Boston. Just picked out a city, right? So once we get past the 30th, right? During that 30th time frame, you got that first subtle hint. So that first little disturbance is going to come through during that 30th, 31st time frame. But yes, definitely more and more members as we get into January, especially around that 6th and 7th time frame, highlighting pretty good snows across this region, and more than 40 to 50% of the ensembles are already highlighting some pretty good snows across that region. And of course, that just amplifies and deepens as we get deeper into January and take you all the way through, February. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch the next update where I protect you for and after the storm.